and Solange also raised their cups and bowed respectfully to Zhang Yi and Liang Yu. Zhang Yi and Liang Yu raised their glasses and took a sip. They took antidotes daily for self-defense, and with Zhang Yi's supernatural ability to manipulate time, they were naturally alert to danger, so they weren't worried about any problems. Now that they've lost, I don't think they'll make any major moves in the short term. However, the Undertaker hasn't made a move yet, so everything is still unknown. We can't let our guard down. When Zhanda heard Zhang Yi mention the Undertaker, a strange look flashed in his eyes. Among those present, he was the only one who had no idea who Zhang Yi really was. However, after today's battle, he already had his suspicions. After all, even Zhang Yi's subordinates and battle beasts possessed top-tier Delta-level strength. So how strong must Zhang Yi, the leader of the group, be? Seeing Zhanda's hypnotized expression, Pa Jigsan first said to Zhang Yi, "Honored guest, Zhanda is a member of my Pa Ji clan. May I ask you to reveal your identity to him?" Zhanda's fearless performance on the battlefield had completely won Pa Jigsan's trust. If it weren't for Pa Jigsan speaking up, he would have fought to the death. Zhang Yi nodded and said indifferently, "It's up to you." He wasn't afraid of revealing his identity, but he didn't see the need to do so. Hiding in the darkness would give him an advantage in the next move. But even if people knew who he was, so what? Who could do anything to him? With strength comes confidence. Having obtained Zhang Yi's permission, Pa Jigsan said to Zhanda with a serious look on his face, "Zhanda, what I'm about to tell you must remain a secret. You must not tell anyone." Seeing how serious Pa Jigsan looked, Zhanda quickly placed his right hand on his chest and bowed, saying, "Yes, clan leader." Only members of the Pa Ji clan and their closest subordinates could address him as clan leader. Others could only refer to Pa Jigsan as clan chief or Tusi. Pa Jigsan took a deep breath and said in a reverent tone, "The person standing before you right now is one of the few peak-level powerhouses in the Huashu Kingdom and the guardian of the Jiangnan region, Lord Chaos. He possesses unimaginably powerful strength. You can think of him as the Undertaker of the Jiangnan region." Upon hearing this, Zhanda was startled, even though he had been prepared. He turned his head in shock and looked at Zhang Yi with awe in his eyes, his gaze flickering as if he had seen a god. "Your Excellency. You are a powerful being on the same level as the Undertaker." Zhanda greets His Excellency Chaos. He bowed again, bending his waist even lower. Zhang Yi said indifferently, "No need to be so polite. Get up." Zhanda stood up excitedly and said with sudden realization, "No wonder the family head was so excited when he heard you were coming." He couldn't sleep for days, and the worry on his face disappeared. "With you here, the Pa Ji family is saved." Zhang Yi said indifferently, "No need for formalities. I have never fought the Undertaker, so I don't know how much stronger he is than me. Right now, we must figure out how to deal with that person in order to ensure the success of our cooperation." He kept the events of that night to himself, as it wasn't proper to sneak off to the Great Snow Mountain without informing Pa Jigsan. Some things are done and don't need to be discussed. No one else knows, so we can all get along. If it were brought out into the open, it would only make things awkward for everyone. When the subject turned to the Undertaker, Pa Jigsan's expression became serious. "Chaos, the Undertaker's power comes from the Tantric faith, which is a mystery beyond our comprehension. Likewise, his power in the southwest region is like that of a god. With just a glance from him, we would be powerless to resist. So, if you want to deal with him, I'm afraid we can't provide you with much information." Zhang Yi thought about it, and everything that happened that night came back to him. The Undertaker's power with a Black Chariot-level combat power of 20,000 points was terrifying. But even more terrifying than that was his ability to borrow some kind of power from the distant Sangha temple. The injuries he suffered could be quickly repaired, and his depleted supernatural abilities could be replenished. This was extremely terrifying. In other words, unless he could be killed instantly, the Undertaker could not be killed in the snowy region. But who could kill a Black Chariot-level mutant instantly? It would probably require the strength of a Hades gatekeeper, or Hotu who had fulfilled the conditions of the curse. "Tell me about the Undertaker. I want to know what kind of person he is." perhaps through his life experiences, they could discover his weaknesses. There was no one else in the room, so Pa Jigsaw nodded immediately. This is no secret. As the nominal leader of the Tantra, the Undertaker's entire life is passed down by the Sangha Temple. Everyone in the Snowy Plateau knows the main events of his life. Pa Jigsaw explained to Zhang Yi in detail. To put it bluntly, the so-called Undertaker has been nothing more than a religious symbol of the Tantra sect for over a century, holding no real power. The real power was in the hands of the chief monk in the 4 great Tussi family clans. The best way to raise such a lucky charm was to raise him to be a useless person. Religion had a perfect set of procedures to achieve this goal in a way that left no room for criticism. That was to study Dharma. Pa Jigsaw said, the original name of this Undertaker was Yashilangtai Jugo. Although he was a member of the Yashilangtai family, he was only a member of a branch family. His parents were both herders. When he was 8 years old, he awakened, and after Sangha Temple received the news, they immediately sent people to take him away. Since then, he has hardly left Sangha Temple. For the first 10 years, he studied various Buddhist scriptures with the high monks and masters of the monastery until he reached adulthood. After that, he was sent to the meditation room of Sangha Temple to undergo 5 years of seclusion. During this period, he was not allowed to leave the meditation room. Every day, someone would bring him food and scriptures. Hearing this, Fatty Su couldn't help but stare in amazement and said, "What? So that means he spent a full 15 years of time in the temple as a lama?" Pa Jigsaw said, "That's right. He couldn't go out freely, even though he was just a figurehead with no real power, but in the hearts of the people of the Snowy Plateau, he was still the incarnation of a deity." Zhang Yi sneered, "Once such a person leaves Sangha Temple and develops some special ideas, he will probably raise his hand and have countless people willing to die for him, right? That would make it inconvenient for you to manage him." Pa Jigsaw did not refute this, but just smiled and nodded. "Uncle, you sighed, but it's a little too cruel." No one denied this. An 8-year-old child entered the doors of the monastery and spent 15 years in the company of ancient Buddha statues and oil lamps. What a boring and lonely life that must be. Pa Jigsaw shook his head. Cruel? Not necessarily. He has always lived in a temple, and the education he has received is that practicing Dharma is the most meaningful thing in life. So he not only doesn't think the outside world is beautiful, he actually enjoys being here. Pa Jigsaw couldn't help but smile bitterly as he said this. That's why I said he is the most pure and devout Buddhist in the world. Zhang Yi sighed. Indeed, imprisoning someone in the name of faith. Restricting someone with a noble cage and not letting him know that he is in a cage. This method is really clever. However, he raised his eyebrows and looked at Pa Jigsaw with some amusement. Letting someone who is too pure possess incomparably powerful strength is actually very scary. The bitter smile on Pa Jigsaw's face grew even deeper. That's why I live every day in fear. Zhang Yi thought carefully about Pa Jigsaw's words, trying to imagine the character of the person he described as the Undertaker. He didn't believe that saints existed in this world. As long as they were human, they must have flaws. Just at that moment, the guards announced their arrival outside. It was the chef, Luodan, delivering food. From a distance, Zhang Yi and the others could already smell the magical aroma. The expressions on his and Liang Yu's faces changed slightly. Zhang Yi said to Pa Jigsaw, "This dish doesn't suit our taste buds." Pa Jigsaw slapped his forehead and said, "I'm sorry, we're used to this food, so I wasn't paying attention." Pa Jigsaw had said that on the Snowy Plateau, only a few noble families were allowed to eat this dish. Moreover, it was difficult to enjoy it even on ordinary days. He quickly ordered the servants, "Have Luodan take that delicacy to my room in the back." Solange and Zhangda hurriedly looked at Pa Jigsaw. Pa Jigsaw smiled slightly and said, "Our distinguished guests are not used to it. You can enjoy it with me later." The two finally smiled knowingly. At this moment, Liang Yu, who had been silent all along, finally couldn't hold back. She couldn't ignore it because she had seen where those ingredients came from with her own eyes. She bent the silver chopsticks in her hand. She looked at Pa Jigsaw and asked coldly, "Pa Ji Tusi, I have a question. As someone of your noble status, you should have no trouble finding food to eat. So why do you insist on eating this?" Pa Jigsaw and the other two were taken aback by Liang Yu's direct question, and their expressions changed slightly. However, Liang Yu was the hero who had defeated the Allied forces, so they had to treat her well. Pa Jigsaw smiled. "Lady, you think we are cruel, don't you?" "That goes without saying," Liang Yu said coldly. Zhang Yi did not stop Liang Yu. He also wanted to know the answer to this question. Pa Jigsaw was in no hurry and began to tell her a story from the past. In ancient times on the snowy plateau, that doesn't seem quite right, because it wasn't that long ago. At that time, when someone died, they would be given a sky burial. The body would be cut up and fed to eagles. We, the people of the snowy region, believe in reincarnation. After death, the soul separates from the body and is reborn. Sky burial is a form of self-sacrifice, allowing the body to return to nature. He looked at Liang Yu and Zhang Yi with a gentle expression. "We approach this with a heart full of gratitude. When that disaster struck, over 90% of the population of the snowy plateau perished in just 1 month. We had to do everything in our power to survive." When he heard Pa Jigsaw say this, everything seemed to make sense. Zhang Yi recalled everything he had experienced in Tianhai City at the beginning of the apocalypse. At that time, he had stockpiled a large amount of food in advance, so he didn't have to do anything against human nature. But if he had been like everyone else, what would he have chosen to do when he was about to starve to death? Zhang Yi had no answer in his heart. Perhaps he would have chosen to starve to death, or perhaps he would have compromised, but either choice would have been extremely painful. Liang Yu frowned. That was then, this is now. Nowadays, there's no need to do that anymore, right? Then why are you still eating this food? Upon hearing this, Pa Jigsaw suddenly laughed. Of course, it's because Chef Luodan cooks so well. He laughed heartily, but Liang Yu and the others felt a chill run down their spines. Zhang Yi's expression remained unchanged, but he felt a shiver down his spine. Some things, no matter how evil they are, once you start doing them, the guilt in your heart will gradually weaken, and eventually you will take them for granted. This is because the greatest pain in your heart has become numb after repeated exposure. Zhang Yi and the others had lost their appetite. In fact, because of what happened last time, they hadn't eaten much today and only drank a little wine. Zhang Yi got up to take his leave. Pa Jigsaw said, "Everyone, please rest and recharge your energy." After the Dharma assembly, he took a deep breath and his eyes became sharp. That will be the beginning of the real battle. Zhang Yi nodded, and led the others out of the living room. Pushing open the huge redwood doors, they saw a long indoor corridor with exquisite white pillars on both sides. As they passed by, they happened to see a figure pushing a cart ahead. Zhang Yi recognized that person. He stood straight with his back straight, and even when pushing the cart, he gave the impression of doing something very solemn. This man was the chief chef of the Paji family, Luodan. The famous dish of the upper class of the snowy plateau was his creation. It was said that he was always invited to be the head chef at every upper-class gathering. Hearing footsteps beside him, Luodan turned his head. He was in his 40s, with neatly combed gray hair and a dark, mysterious look in his eyes, as if he were harboring some kind of melancholy. This kind of man easily attracted young girls who were new to the world. When Luodan saw Zhang Yi and the others, he immediately stopped by the side of the road and bowed respectfully. Zhang Yi just nodded and didn't speak to him. The group walked away together, because the thought of his hands having touched anything in the kitchen made them want to keep their distance. However, just as Zhang Yi and the others passed in front of him, he suddenly sniffed the air, then looked up and smiled meaningfully. "You haven't tried my cooking yet." Zhang Yi glanced at him and said indifferently, "I don't like that kind of thing." "Oh no, to be precise, I've never eaten it. I probably never will in my entire life." Luodan nodded approvingly. "You're right, but those 2 words are written densely in the cracks of the 5,000 years of history books of Huashu Kingdom." He raised a finger and stared at Zhang Yi with a hint of a smile. "There's no smell of that food on you." but the smell of blood is stronger than anyone else's. Does that count as eating it in another way? Zhang Yi sneered, you talk too much. He couldn't be bothered to engage in Zen-like banter with this kind of person, so he quickly left with his men. A gentleman judges by deeds, not by intentions, for there is no one in this world who is perfect. Luo Dan was not angry at being scolded. He watched Zhang Yi and his men leave the corridor step by step until they walked out of the white palace-like building. Some were happy, while others were sad. The two families of La Men and Xiaja, who were merely supporting characters in this incident, were completely frustrated. Not only were they forced by Deiji to send troops, but in the end, they failed and didn't gain anything. Deiji's domineering attitude made them furious. La Men Oju stood in front of the Lemon family crest, shouting that one day she would make Deiji kneel down and beg for forgiveness. The tall mutant in her mansion didn't think much of it, but when he heard that powerful mercenaries had suddenly appeared in the Paji family, he narrowed his eyes slightly. Miss Lemon, do you know where those mercenaries came from? After raging, La Men Oju calmed down when she heard the tall mutant speak. I don't know. Even the Yashi Langtai family couldn't find out where they came from. Too many people have come here from other realms over time. She said, slowly curling the corners of her mouth. Aren't you the same? The tall stranger smiled politely and said, those people are very powerful. If there are any Epsilon-level mutants among them, we could be in trouble. La Men Oju blurted out, impossible. Absolutely impossible. The tall stranger raised his eyebrows and said, oh? Why are you so sure? La Men Oju said, in the 6 major regions of the Huashu Kingdom, if they are not invited, mutants will not cross the border. Especially the top mutants in each region, if they cross the border lightly, it is tantamount to provocation, or even a declaration of war. Moreover, this is tantamount to inviting wolves into the house. If a powerful force from another level really intervenes, the cooperating party will not gain anything. Cooperation is based on the premise that both sides have the qualifications to negotiate terms. The other regions, due to the agreement between the 6 major regions, would not easily interfere in the internal affairs of the Southwest region. If they did that, it would be tantamount to tearing up the agreement. Currently, only the Xinjiang region has the strength to do so, as a powerful dragon can overpower a local snake. However, if they were to engage in cross-border operations, they would also have to bear enormous risks and even the possibility of failure. The tall mutant supported his chin with both hands, his expression somewhat gloomy. Could it be that the Huashu Kingdom has some hidden masters who are not part of the official organization? He had originally thought that coming to this place would be a walk in the park. As long as he dealt with the undertaker of the Tundra, no one would be his match. In the worst case, he could make a profit without investing anything and seize some of the underground demon kingdom's treasures from the undertaker. But that night, he had actually encountered 3 other Epsilon-level mutants. This made him curb his contempt for this place. Moreover, a feeling of excitement and tension welled up in his heart, making him feel extremely happy to have come here. Investigate further. There might be someone extraordinary among the mercenaries hired by the Paji family. The tall mutant's ice-blue eyes burned with an unbridled passion, like flames. The Xiaja family. After Xiaja Gyatso returned to his family, he was also filled with anger. Not only had he worked hard for nothing, but he had also lost his right-hand man, Luo-san. If it weren't for the fact that Deiji's men had also been killed, he would have suspected that Deiji had deliberately set them up. But even so, Deiji's final act was too ugly to watch. He completely disregarded their respect and took all of the Paji family's compensation for himself, leaving nothing for the other 2 families. Xiaja Gyatso sat in the living room with a gloomy expression on his face and waved his hand to dismiss everyone. However, a few mutants remained by his side. They did not look remarkable and were dressed like local residents of the snowy plateau. However, when they spoke, their accents were clearly standard Mandarin. Head of the Xiaja family, you have probably seen it yourself. The current situation in the snowy plateau is very unfavorable for you. A man sat on the sofa next to Xiaja Gyatso and spoke to him with a smile. Judging from his demeanor, he respected Xia Gyatso but did not fear him. If I am not mistaken, after the Chuanzhao Dharma assembly ends and you open the doors of the Demon Kingdom, the last vestiges of peace in the Snowy Plateau will disappear completely. At that time, the Xiaja clan will likely face the same fate as the Yashilangtai clan. Xia Gyatso glanced at the man. He didn't need the man to say it, he already knew it in his heart. Over the past 2 years, Daiji's main target had been the Paji family. With the Paji family bearing the brunt of the pressure on his family and the Lamen family was actually much less. They had also been swept up in the fight against the Paji family. But Xia Gyatso understood the principle of using someone and then discarding them. Once the Yashilangtai clan had dealt with the Paji clan, they would certainly eliminate both of their clans as well. This action clearly showed that Daiji did not consider them to be a threat at all. At this moment, his greatest hope rested on the mysterious man standing before him. They had been in secret contact for a year. After demonstrating his powerful strength, he told him that as long as the Xiaja family was willing to cooperate and help them enter the Demon Kingdom, once the matter was accomplished, they would help the Xiaja family become the rulers of the Snowy Plateau. At the very least, they would support them and prevent them from being swallowed up by the Yashilangtai family. Although Xia Gyatso understood that the other party would not do anything without gaining something in return and might have ulterior motives, but now, like Pa Jigsan in the past, he had no better choice. The man picked up a cup of hot tea from the side, took a slow sip, and continued, "Today, you have seen that the Pajig family has also found outside help. Without our help, your Xiaja family will find it difficult to survive the war between them." Xia Gyatso's breathing became a little heavy. His thick right hand clenched slightly as he stared at the man and his men behind him. "If you help us, can you really protect my Xiaja clan?" The man laughed hollowly and said meaningfully to Xia Gyatso, "I want to establish a long-term partnership with you, Xiaja clan chief. You should understand what this means." The man said no more. His status and position meant he didn't need to say anything else to Xia Gyatso. Xia Gyatso thought for a moment, but realized that he and the entire Xiaja clan had no way out. "Fine, I agree to cooperate with you." When he said those words, it was as if he had made a huge sacrifice. And in fact, that was exactly the case. Not everyone was like Shang Yi, whose ambitions were relatively simple. The Xiaja family wanted to gain powerful support, and they had to pay a heavy price for it. Especially when the other party was an Epsilon-level mutant, the price had to be even heavier. After the war between the 4 great families and the monks of Sangha Temple ended, a period of peace did indeed follow. The Chuanzhao Dharma assembly was about to be held, which was the most important event for the entire Snowy Plateau. No one dared to disturb it. In the past, even if a war broke out, both sides would choose to cease fire during this time. It was even common for the rulers of enemy states to come to Sangha Temple together to attend the assembly, and then return to war after the assembly ended. Faith is a very powerful force that can even influence royal power. This may also be why, throughout the history of the Central Plains, there have always been rulers who suppressed religion. During these days, Zhang Yi and the others were not idle. Zhang Yi knew that there were undercurrents in the Snowy Plateau. Both his overt and covert opponents were gathering strength. They would wait until the end of the Chuanzhao Dharma assembly, when the doors of the Demon Kingdom at the foot of the Great Snow Mountains opened. Only then would the real battle begin. Since Zhang Yi had come here secretly, he couldn't make it known to the outside world. Therefore, he could only contact Deng Shintong, whom he trusted, and ask him to help investigate the mutants he had encountered that night. However, since they had fought for a short time, it was difficult to accurately assess the abilities of his opponents. Therefore, Deng Shintong was also unable to determine who they were. Zhang Yi said, "That's easy. Give me all the information you have on all the Epsilon-level mutants in the world. I'll sort through it myself." Deng Shintong laughed, "Old Zhang, you're really greedy. These are classified documents." Zhang Yi rolled his eyes. "Don't give me that. I'm now a major shareholder of the Deng family. Hurry up and send them over." Deng Shintong shrugged. Now that Zhang Yi was the Deng family's backer, he naturally didn't dare to offend him. Let me organize it first. Some of the information needs to be obtained from Xinjing. Xinjing's intelligence network was undoubtedly the most comprehensive, but with the Deng family's connections in Xinjing's upper echelons, it wasn't difficult to obtain some confidential information. Soon, Deng Shintong sent the complete and organized information to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi called Yang Xinxin and the others over and asked them to help him analyze the information. After closing the doors, Zhang Yi played the video from that night. He hadn't shown this video to anyone before, probably because it didn't mean much at the time. But now, he needed to analyze this only piece of information and figure out the identities of these people. On the other side, Zhang Yi projected the information sent by Deng Shintong into the air. There were a total of 37 people in this information. In other words, excluding Zhang Yi, there were 37 Epsilon-level mutants in the world that Deng Shintong currently knew about. Zhang Yi and the others examined the list carefully. Among the Epsilon-level individuals from Huashu Kingdom, Black Tortoise, Li Changgong, and Han Shanzhua could be ruled out. Their abilities did not match those of the individuals they had encountered that night. So far, there have only been 2 Epsilon-level mutants in Huashu Kingdom that Zhang Yi hasn't seen in battle. They are Xinjing's Hotuguan Longyue and Xitagarba King Shang Gaowen. According to Yang Xinxin, Ho-Tu is a short girl, which doesn't match the description of the people from that night. Even if she can disguise her body, she can't hide her abilities. As for Shang Daowen, there is insufficient intelligence about his abilities. Zhang Yi tapped his name and said, "Put a question mark after this person's name." Zhou Qir said, "But there are still 2 more people." Zhang Yi said, "If they're not hidden strong individuals from the district, then they must be from outside the domain." He rubbed his chin and said calmly, "Most likely they are from outside the domain." The brilliance of the Epsilon-level mutants was too dazzling. Even if such people wanted to hide, it would be difficult for them not to be discovered. Especially now, with the world in chaos, everyone was eager to show off their strength. Perhaps they would not reveal their trump cards easily, but they would definitely let others know of their existence. Yang Xinxin looked closely at the 2 images. She quickly analyzed and connected these characters in her mind. Neon, the newly risen Epsilon evil demon. After the Battle of Star Island, he took advantage of the decline in the strength of the Pelican and Azuma organizations to rise to power. He is now the strongest mutant in Neon. Fremons, Vulcan, Ivanov. The Vatican Crusaders, Organization, Cardinal Arnold Olive. Britannia, Knights of the Round Table, Commander Arthur Pendragon. Columbia, Lord of the Ocean, and the newly promoted Epsilon, Piercer. Yang Xinxin analyzed their information one by one. There were a few familiar faces among them. However, most of them were completely unknown to Zhang Yi and the others. Not to mention that there were a lot of gaps in their intelligence, especially in terms of abilities. Many people only knew their names and had no idea what abilities they possessed. Yang Xinxin's eyes flashed with a burning light, like a high-speed machine, quickly analyzing all the intelligence. Suddenly, her brows furrowed as if she had thought of something. She quickly unfolded a world map in midair. Everyone's attention was drawn to it. Zhang Yi walked over and said, "What's wrong, Xinxin? Did you discover something?" "It's nothing too significant." Yang Xinxin pointed to the map, landing on the location of the snowy plateau. "We can now confirm that there are definitely forces from outside the realm involved in the affairs of the southwest region. The 4 great Tusi families, Pajigsan, can seek help from your brother. Then the other forces may as well take the same approach. If we look at it from a geographical perspective, the countries in Central Asia are the most suspicious." Her white fingers slowly moved along the Great Snow Mountain towards the west. They crossed the highest peak in the world, which was too high to climb, and continued westward. As it stands now, the Brahma Alliance located on the western side of the snowy plateau is the most suspicious. Everyone looked at the huge world map, their eyes falling on the peninsula country located to the west of Huashu Kingdom. It must be said that Yang Xinxin's analysis was very reasonable, and everyone nodded without any doubts. After the end of the world, due to its complex domestic situation, the Brahma kingdom formed a huge Brahma alliance. The entire country developed with religion as its source, and this became even more pronounced after the apocalypse. In terms of national strength, the Brahma kingdom is now one of the strongest countries in the world. In terms of population, they surpassed Huashu decades ago and have been firmly ranked first in the world. Therefore, according to the information provided by Deng Shintong, the number of epsilons currently known to exist has reached 5 digits. Yang Xinxin continued to Zhang Yi, in the snowy plateau area, our friction with the Brahma alliance has never ceased. Now that the world is in chaos, it is not impossible that they are eyeing the snowy plateau. Her expression grew serious. Perhaps, what they covet is not just what lies beneath the great snow mountain. Zhang Yi's pupils suddenly contracted, his eyebrows shot up, and a strong killing intent burst from his eyes. Are you saying that those bastards want to seize the snowy region? Yang Xinxin said lightly, if they have the chance, I believe they will definitely not give it up. Uncle Yu snorted angrily, hugging his two thick arms and saying fiercely, those bastards have never given up. If they dare to have any dirty thoughts, I will not let them off. Zhang Yi regained his composure and said indifferently, they don't have the guts to do it openly. Now that we're here, let's take this opportunity to find out what they're up to. Whether the items beneath the great snow mountain fell into the hands of the Tantra or Zhang Yi, it was still their own business. But if outsiders had their sights set on them, Zhang Yi would be very unhappy. Yang Xia frowned with concern. But now things are complicated. No matter what, it proves that someone in the snowy plateau is colluding with foreign forces. Zhang Yi said indifferently, then let's eliminate them. The moment those words left his mouth, it was a death sentence for those families. Zhang Yi could understand that they wanted to live, but he would not empathize with them. They had to bear the consequences of their own actions. Once this incident was over, all those who had colluded with external forces must die. Either they would die at Zhang Yi's hands, or Zhang Yi would inform the other districts and gather the forces of the 6 major regions to exterminate them. Everyone agreed on this point. Yang Xinxin continued, okay, that's just one of the key points. There's another aspect I want to talk about. She pointed to the information Deng Shintong had shown her. There are some records about the abilities of the 6 epsilons of Brahma. This information comes from intelligence agents who collected battlefield intelligence on them. Yang Xinxin looked at Zhang Yi, brother, that mutant wearing golden combat armor, wielding a golden sacred sword, and possessing the ability to release department. This intelligence matches the Garuda of the Brahma Alliance perfectly. Garuda is one of the 8 tribes' heavenly dragon. The concept of the 8 tribes originates from the indigenous sect of Brahma. Of course, they are not the supreme deities of Brahma. Because the 8 tribes' heavenly dragon all have their own masters. Those familiar with the mythology of the Brahmins know that their 3 supreme deities are Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu. However, according to Yang Xinxin, the Brahmins are a religious nation, and they have a deep-rooted faith in the Trimurti, so no one would use this as a title. Therefore, Garuda is one of the top few strongest beings in the Brahmins today.